And an urgent manhunt is underway for a 26-year-old man in Hertfordshire, wanted in connection with a triple murder.
Yes, officers are asking the public not to approach Kyle Clifford, there's a picture of him there, who may still be armed with a crossbow, and to contact police immediately if they see him.
Well, to jump straight into this story, we're joined now by former senior investigating officer at the Metropolitan Police, Professor Simon Harding. Simon, this is a very unusual situation, and this man still on the loose.
Yeah, it is. I'm not a professor, by the way, but it's a terrible case, obviously, and our heart goes out to all the people who are going to be affected by this. And this man is clearly dangerous, and of course, the police will be working now around the clock to try and find him and bring him in as quickly as possible. That will be their priority.
And shocking to hear that 3 women were seriously injured and then died on the scene. Truly horrifying. In terms of this crossbow, we're hearing that it may well have been used as the weapon, or at least the man, the prime suspect, may well still be carrying one. This isn't the first crossbow-related incident we've seen. What are the rules around crossbows?
Well, obviously, there is a legislation governing crossbows. You are allowed to own one and possess one, but obviously you can't then carry it in public or use it in public in that way. But it's like anything. We talk about knives, around knives being used in homicides and other serious offences. And the legislation probably again needs looking at: is it strict enough? And I think obviously releasing the fact that there is a crossbow involved would suggest perhaps that it's been used, or that he is known to carry one anyway. So it also helps for the public to understand that he is a dangerous man, and that with all the press and the public appeals they're making, that they shouldn't approach him, and what they're after is information, sightings, whether they've seen him yesterday or today, to try and give an idea of where he might be heading.
What sort of thought process goes on within the police when they decide to sort of broaden an investigation out, to sort of get the public involved, to share these sorts of pictures, to make it a much wider issue than just a specific and limited investigation?
Yeah, that's right. It's one of the decisions that an SIO would make. You make that decision, you decide whether or not you feel it's appropriate for press releases and how much information you give them, and so that the public become involved. And clearly with this one, the decision is made quite early that they see him as actually their priority. They obviously don't know where he is at the moment. They want evidence from around the scene so that if anybody saw him, can put him in that area, because they obviously want to link him to that scene as much as possible through evidence as well. But also, he's had a head start, and that's always a great worry as an SIO, that somebody's got a head start on you. So they'll be broadening that net of information to people so that they can understand and try and plot where he might have been. Obviously, using things like CCTV and that you see all the time in doorbells and everything else that you can see, to try and help and understand the direction he's going in. But also then broadening that even further to outside your ports areas. Your border force becoming involved, because one of the things they don't want him to do is get away. But obviously that also finally, sort of brings into question as well that you want to get him before, he does any harm to himself, which can be quite common in these cases as well. You don't understand what his link is at the moment. We don't understand his link towards these 3 victims, but also we don't understand what his own mental health might be as well. So there's lots of things that they will be considering, again, which is why their priority will be to bring him in as quickly as possible.
Yes, previously the police have been criticised when they haven't released a photo of a prime suspect like this, but it appears as though the Hertfordshire police have taken this decision very quickly indeed. The image is there for everyone to see of this young man, this 26-year-old suspect. We should say that we're expecting a press conference from the police at about 12:30. Can you tell us a little bit about the preparation that goes into these types of press conferences? Will they be able to offer us much in the way of extra detail that we don't already know?
Well, it's quite likely they will be. They might, depending on what the SO decides and what information they have in front of them, maybe give us more information about where he might be heading through the factual things that they found. Obviously, they've said that he frequents areas which they know about in Enfield in North London. So, they might possibly look at, if they do have that evidence, that they've said they've got a sighting or they believe he's heading into a certain more specific area. But that the preparation for these press releases and something which is gathering as much momentum as this within the press is that you want everyone to understand what facts you have at the moment. They'll be obviously telling us about the reassurance that they will be putting in place around that local area, but they'll also be telling us about you would expect how many people are involved and what they'll be doing. So it is something where they've made that decision, and it seems to be the right decision at the moment, because they've got to that stage where they're probably thinking, right, we don't know where he is and we need your help. And when someone like this is on the loose, you've got to get them as quickly as possible so they don't harm anybody else or even harm themselves.
And I would expect that, given this is a picture that has been given to news organisations now broadcasting the country over, this is a search that is not just limited to Hertfordshire, not just limited to Enfield, not just limited to North London.
Yeah, that's right. And I think, you look at Hertfordshire itself, and, even that you can see from images around the scene that it's a very leafy area, lots of woodland. So there's lots of searching to be done locally around that scene and as it spreads out from that scene. But obviously, again, with that 12 hours or so that he's had in front of being caught, that, they need to stretch that, because obviously you can get a long way in 12 hours. We know that. So obviously, the more people you tell, the more people are alert to it. And of course, the police, not just in London and Hertfordshire, but all the surrounding counties, and again, as a repeat, even as far as the borders of this country, will be on high alert for him.
Yes, I should say some local people have been speaking to the media. This coming through on PA. A local councillor, Lawrence Brass, who lives close by the scene, he's saying, I didn't know them personally, but I knocked on their door. I was canvassing a few days ago there for the general election. He goes on to say, I'm sure their friends will be comforting the remains of the family that are left. Terribly sad. These are all my representatives. He says, I know them all. And then he goes on to talk about how the helicopter landed on the lawn 100 yards away from here, air ambulances involved, rumours circulating about this crossbow. He says the worst thing that's ever happened in this part of Bushey is a bit of illegal fly tipping. And then suddenly we get 3 murders and we're all a bit shell-shocked. That seems to be what's coming out strongly, that this sort of thing doesn't happen in this area, Simon.
No, and that's absolutely right. I think, it's known as an area which is particularly quiet for crime, and it's a place where almost, you could say people go to retire sometimes as well in those sort of areas. So it will have shocked a community, and it's not just about reassurance patrols. It's about, that reassurance that the police are doing something to try and find him as quickly as possible. So, I understand, obviously, that the thoughts really and the other focus is those that are left behind in that family circle. So they'll have specially trained officers with them, supporting them, as much as you can when you have something like this so tragic happen in your family. So, obviously the police will want to reassure them and want to reassure the public that they are doing everything they can, and that includes then putting his face out and his details out in the press.
But of course, if a member of the public were to come across this individual, were to recognise him from the way that his face has been plastered across news organisations the country over, how should they behave? How should they act?
Well, of course, there's no sense in trying to tackle somebody like that at all. This person knows what they've done, and they will do everything they can. Is everything likely to evade capture? So, what the police are after is not people to take matters into their own hands. They're looking at, they want information, they want sightings, they want this, to make sure that is that person. They will then try and support that by looking at CCTV. So, it might be sometimes in these cases where somebody's on the run, you get sightings all over the place where that person can't be in 2 places at once. So, whatever information it is, no matter how small it is, they want that contact. They want to try and, find that bit of information which leads to his arrest as quickly as possible. So, people shouldn't in any way think about tackling this guy at all. They should be, getting the police there as quickly as possible and letting those that are trained to deal with people like this get hold of him.
OK, well, thank you very much indeed for your time. Simon Harding, a former police officer at the Metropolitan Police.